Mercedes claim they finally found the culprit of their 2022 season. What have they found? Watch the video to make sure you know everything about Mercedes' decisive moment, where they lost their dominance. Do you think Mercedes will be fighting for wins in the next season? Let us know your thoughts down below. Mercedes claim it can finally pinpoint one moment from last year as the basic error that led to the team's problematic W13 car and a challenging 2022 Formula 1 season. Mercedes made a mistake this year when it came to the new aerodynamic regulations in Formula 1, despite having won 7 consecutive Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. For the first time since 2011, the team is without a race victory, and it is expected to finish third in the Constructors' standings, trailing only Red Bull and a revitalized Ferrari. In the early half of the season, as it struggled with porpoising troubles, Mercedes fluctuated from podium contenders to fighting right among the midfield pack, due to the W13's high degree of inconsistency. Mercedes have fixed a few problems with the car, particularly its porpoising, and is now competitive with Red Bull and Ferrari on some of its stronger tracks, like Singapore and Hungary. However, the car's performance on low downforce tracks is still insufficient. It continues to cause mood swings that perplex the team, and is yet to earn the desired maiden victory of 2022. According to Mercedes technical director Mike Elliott, those problems are the result of a mistake that was committed last year and that it is unable to entirely repair. You look at how we developed the car, and I can point to one moment in time last year where we did something where I think we made a mistake, Elliott told F1's Beyond the Grid podcast. What you're seeing in terms of performance and the way it swings from race to race as a consequence of that. And that's a mistake we've known about for a while, and something we've been correcting, and that's why our performance has gradually got better. But it's not something we can fully correct for a little while yet, and we will do over the winter. Elliott declined to comment specifically on the error, although it is assumed that it had to do with the floor's layout, particularly the exposed portion of it. Additionally, he described how the odd zero side pod concept was developed by F1's previous benchmark team after the team discovered a loophole. With the loophole, you go through the winter and you look at and think, has anybody else spotted it? Is someone else going to turn up with it? Elliott added. While it looks visually very different, as always with these things, it's about opening up small aerodynamic advantages. Without going and running a development on the concept we've got and running a development on a different concept, it's hard to know what it will be worth at the end. But it wasn't a huge game changer. In the learning we found this year, it's less about the shape of the car. It's more about the way we approach the development of the car. That's where the difference lies. When you look at the side pod, people say it looks very different. That must work completely different to the rest of the cars. And it doesn't. It's just a slightly different solution. Aerodynamically, I don't think it's a massive departure from the other cars. It's just something that adds a little bit of performance for us. The team has not yet decided whether it will stick with this approach or change course to align more closely with Red Bull, the benchmark team for 2022, as Williams and McLaren did earlier this year. When Mercedes unveiled their initial design at the official F1 preseason test in Bahrain, it aroused questions because it seemed to violate the rule's intent. Elliott said the FIA was shocked by what Mercedes produced and described how, despite some initial doubts about its legality, it was quickly decided to be a legal concept. The aerodynamicists come up with the idea. We take another group of people, generally run by our chief designer, they will go and look for themselves and see if they can shoot it down, Elliott explained when asked how the team ensured its design was legal. Before the test, we'd shown it to the FIA. We discussed it with them. Their first reaction was, that's not what we intended. And they worked through it as well to see whether they can challenge it. It looks like Mercedes have found out what the problem is, and we're pretty sure it has something to do with their floor and side pod. But the specifics remain uncertain for now. For now, the focus is on finishing second in this year's Constructors' Championship. But for now, Toto Wolff, the team principal for Mercedes, thinks the Silver Arrow's poor performance at the Singapore Grand Prix has hurt his team's chances of overtaking Ferrari to finish second in the Constructors' title. Mercedes had expectations of securing their first victory of the year in Singapore, as they entered the weekend 35 points behind Ferrari in the standings. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, who started in the pit lane, finished P9 and P14 respectively, on a difficult night at Marina Bay. Toto Wolff is frustrated because the 8-time world champions have now dropped 66 points behind the Scuderia, as a result of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz's podium finishes. This season has given us several tough lessons, and today was another one, said Wolff. We started from the opposite ends of the grid with our two cars, but we couldn't capitalize on the car's race pace with either of them when it came to an end result. The biggest frustration is that we couldn't build on the signs of competitive performance we saw in FP2 and in qualifying. Our championship fight for P2 has got significantly more difficult with this result, but the only thing to do is collect ourselves and throw our energy into the next race in Suzuka to rebuild momentum. When Hamilton hit the barrier at turn 7 while pursuing Carlos Sainz, he was in 4th place. Although he was still able to proceed, he dropped to 8th before driving wide into a corner in an attempt to pass Sebastian Vettel in the closing laps, which allowed Max Verstappen to pass him. Wolff later disclosed the difficulties Hamilton had throughout the race. Lewis was fighting for the podium for much of the race, but also battling a car balance that was on a knife edge today, in difficult conditions and on the bumpy surface, said Wolff. After he locked up and damaged the wing, the stop to change tyres and the nose cost him position. Then he lost out even more when cars ahead pitted under safety car and jumped ahead. That left him stuck in a train of cars on very similar age tyres, and he couldn't make up any ground. Russell qualified 11th but started from the pit lane due to engine penalties. He made the decision to change from intermediate tyres to the mediums early as a result of the difficulty moving through the pack. Wolff stated the team had nothing to lose, even though the choice did not turn out as planned. For George, we rolled the dice on dry tyres when he was running out of the points. In hindsight, it was clearly too early, Wolff admitted. But he had nothing to lose, so we were prepared to take the gamble. Even so, as the race unfolded, he was still on course to make it back to the points until the collision with Mick Schumacher, which put him last on the road. And so, Mercedes had a challenging weekend because, despite Lewis Hamilton appearing to be very quick during qualifying, they were unable to translate that performance into strong finishes in the race on Sunday. George Russell too had a miserable weekend. Wolff, though, noted Singapore's advantages and believed the W13 was pretty quick in the open. Wolff also believes it will be challenging to make a big impression in Japan, despite the fact that there were a lot of lessons learned. In the Mercedes preview for the weekend, Wolff said, "Our target is to rebuild the momentum we had before Singapore and capitalize on the positive underlying performance of the car. There are still 5 opportunities to score good points and end the year strongly. Suzuka will give our package some challenges, and it will be hard to repeat the qualifying performance we saw in Singapore, but I hope that will be balanced out with a stronger Sunday afternoon." Mercedes are looking to bounce back at Suzuka and the following 4 races to finish the season strong to try and fight for that P2 spot in the Constructors' Championship. But what is more important to note is that they finally seem to have figured out what slashed their performance on track, so they can finally turn their focus to their 2023 Challenger and make sure they can bring a package capable of bringing home race wins. Will Mercedes be able to become P2 in the Constructors' standings? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to make sure your favorite driver won't crash this weekend. We'll see you in the next video.